name is Andrea. I'm with Inspira Advantage, and I'll be your host this evening. We have a lot to talk about. The overarching theme, the title of tonight's presentation is How to Prepare for Vet School Interviews. Before we really get going, I have a couple of housekeeping rules, so to speak. First and foremost, this webinar is recorded. So what that means for you is you will receive a recording within your inbox within a day or two. If you do have to hop out and pop back in, don't worry, you'll receive it no matter what. In terms of timeline of tonight's discussion, we have some really great talking points. So first and foremost, expert strategies for acing the interview and what that looks like, mastering different formats, to effective communication skills, how to overcome those interview challenges, and a Q&A. So we encourage you to use that chat function, type in all your questions, and Caitlin, who will be introducing herself momentarily, she knows her stuff. She really does, and I'll make sure that we leave enough time towards the end to really get all those questions answered for you. Length, we're looking at running this webinar between 45 minutes and an hour, which leaves us plenty of time to really get through everything. Just want to take a moment to chat about who we are and what we offer. You may have been on one of our webinars before, or this may be your first time. Either way, we're super excited to have you here. As mentioned earlier, we're Inspira Advantage. We're a globally recognized globally recognized admissions consulting and test prep firm with 15 years of experience. We specialize in guiding students through the complex and competitive process of applying to graduate schools in the healthcare fields, including veterinary, medical, residency, dental, various physicians, assistant, and nursing programs. With a 94% acceptance rate, we maximize an applicant's chances of getting into the world's most competitive programs, something we're extremely proud of. We believe in starting the candidacy development process as early as possible. For our college freshmen, I'm not sure if we have any college freshmen in the room, we offer pre-health advising and profile development. Together, we build a timeline and plan for the years leading up to applying and help walk the students through every step of the process. We start with a complete academic advising, including course selection and GPA strategy. Next, we want to help students get involved with the right experiences in order to help differentiate their profile and become a top candidate. This includes finding and applying to research engagements, shadowing opportunities, clinical and non-clinical volunteering, student clubs and organizations, extracurriculars, leadership roles, and clinical experiences. Our goal is to help students gain a strong foundation and understand what admissions are looking for while building a portfolio that sets them apart from other applicants. Where our counselors support students in building their profiles, our team of tutors work closely with them to provide one-on-one tutoring. Students take an official diagnostic test before starting so tutors can assess their strengths and areas of improvement. This helps us create a customized study plan structured for the days, weeks, and months ahead. We tailor our approach to each student's unique needs and schedule, providing the right assessments and lessons as they become familiar with the test content, strategies, and format. Interim tests monitor and track progress, allowing us to modify study plans and build an upward trend leading towards the official test date. Once we've helped shape an outstanding candidate, we continue working with them to create the perfect application. Our all-inclusive application programs provide students with unlimited support for their entire application. Our program starts with a detailed profile analysis, diving deep into the student's stats and experiences. This foundation helps to create a unique story and application narrative and also guides the creation of a well-balanced list of reach, target, and safety schools. Our admissions counselors, who are also essay writing experts, will brainstorm and outline until the personal statements, supplemental essays are perfect. These essays showcase the best aspects of our students, connecting their life journeys with themes of each school they apply to. Whether it's the main application or scholarship essays, we offer unlimited edits. Once the applications are submitted, we support students with interview prep, scholarship applications, communicating with admissions, and waitlist strategy support. We are with the student all the way until the end of the application cycle once they hear back from every school they've applied to, and of course, receive their acceptances. Overall, our goal is to build the most competitive candidate and application. We use every tool in our skill set to ensure the products we create with our students stand out from the rest. If you're interested in learning more about us, our packages, we offer personalized free consultations via video, phone, or email. Our admissions counselors are ready and willing to help you through the process so you don't have to navigate it alone, no matter where you are in the application process. With that being said, I'd love to pass it over to Caitlin to introduce herself and really get going with tonight's conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
You got thumbs up in the chat.
It's nice to meet everyone. I'm Caitlin, and I'm a fourth-year student at North Carolina State University. I've been helping pre-vet students on their applications for several years now. When I was a pre-vet student, I remember how stressful this process was, and I didn't have a lot of guidance. So my goal is to help others with the process and make it a little bit less daunting. Would love this to be a little bit interactive. So if everyone can put in the chat their year, so I have a better idea of who's in the audience, that would be really great. And I'll talk as answers come through. Let's see, we got class of 2025. Anyone different, or is everyone 2025? 2024, okay, perfect. Same, cool. Alum, okay, awesome. It's a good mix. Cool, okay. So we'll get started talking about interviews. This is typically the fall time. Right around now is when you're going to be pretty much getting all your interviews in. Okay, graduated, awesome. I love the mix of people. I love also talking to non-traditional students. So graduated 2011 is awesome. And those who are graduating this year, congratulations. It's a very exciting time. Okay, and the interviews basically, so it's pretty much a couple of months, the different schools that are going to be interviewing, because not every school does, but different vet schools that interview, it's pretty much right around now that it's like the main interview season. So why are interviews important? For the vet schools that do give interview opportunities, it allows them to meet you and learn more about you than just reading your paper, because your application that they get, which paper metaphor for the computerized version of your application, basically that is giving them a glimpse of who you are, but it's really hard to tell personality from the essays that, you know, you're going to get 3 different people to proofread. And, you know, by the time that you're done getting them proofread and you've incorporated all the answers that you think like they'll want to see and that, you know, try to describe different parts of you, it's hard to get a real sense of who's behind that application. And it helps them differentiate one person from the next from interviews if they know that you're personable, because this is a field of talking to clients. And even if that's not like the specific subset of vet med that you go into, the majority of people will be talking to clients. So they like to see that you are able to hold a conversation. They like to be able to get a sense of your personality and see if it's a good fit for the culture at their own school. And it's a chance to make sure that you seem like you care about their school and that it's not just like one of 100 apps that you're submitting because you just want to go anywhere. So they want to feel special. So it's an opportunity for you to show them also that you've done your research on them and that you actually care about their school. So we're preparing efficiently also means knowing your own background, what you've done, and then being able to convey that in a way that leaves a lasting impression on them, because they're going to get thousands of applications and you want to stick out in their mind, so that when they're going through later trying to remember like who they liked their conversations with, you stick out. Okay, so there's a lot of common questions that different vet schools will be asking. For example, why do you want to be a vet? What do you like about our school? What are your biggest strengths and weaknesses? And it's really important for you to have different specific examples on deck ready to give when they ask these kind of questions. It's possible that they always can ask a question that you're not prepared for, and we'll talk about how to address that. But for all the common ones, you want to have your answers ready. So it's important to know your resume and know your experiences and freshen up on everything before you sit down to talk in your interview, whether that be virtual or in person, just so that you're prepared to describe the experiences you have. So they ask you, So when they ask you, like, tell me about the different animal or veterinary experiences you have, you're prepared with answers and you don't have to fumble trying to think of what you did because, you know, your tensions are high, you're nervous, it's an interview, and then you draw a blank. It's really important that you know your resume and you know what you put on your application. And so refreshing yourself on the essays that you wrote by the time of your interviews is important, because it's going to be probably like a few months by the time between the time that you submit and the time that you start interviews. And you want to make sure that you remember what you submitted to them so that it doesn't catch you off guard. It's important to explain why you're unique, because that's what's going to leave the lasting impact. So if you have different cultural experiences, if you are bilingual, trilingual, if you did a really cool, unique job, or if you're a non-traditional student who had some sort of career path the past decade, like that's what's going to make you unique and set you apart. And you're going to want to find a way to incorporate that into whatever questions that they ask you. So not every question, but say they ask you to tell them about like your experiences in vet med and then your non-veterinary experiences. You want to find a way to incorporate the things that make you unique into the answer so that you can stick out in their mind and that you're not going to just blend in with the other 1,000 applicants that they have. And then while you're talking about your experiences, it's important to try to convey your passion in your personality, in your answers when you're describing and you're not just like answering the question directly, but also in your whole emotional, like outwardly persona. You're giving off passion and you're showing that you're interested in this field, you're interested in the school, you have drive. Because I've had applicants tell me in the past that they were denied with feedback that they seemed too serious during their interview. And so everyone's nervous. A lot of people act serious. And some of the questions are serious. You don't want to laugh through them, but you want to still be able to convey, even if it's in the very beginning and the very end, you want to be able to like show that you really love this field, you're passionate about it, you're smiling and you're thanking them for their time. And in those little glimpses of your personality, they'll get a feel for you and they'll see that, you know, you're not going to burn out day one because you're a stress ball. They'll see that you're really excited about this field. You have personality. You're going to be able to talk to clients. And it just all goes a long way as you talk through your answers to also give off a lot of nonverbal cues at the same time, that you're interested, you're focused, and you're ready to go, basically. And then talking about your goals in vet med. So not just like, you know, getting into vet school, but beyond that, everyone has the opportunity to change their mind in vet school. So you can go in with one thing and change your mind, but it's helpful to have an idea so that if you're really passionate about large animal medicine and most of your experiences align with that, it's kind of good to have an idea of like what kind of careers that could look like. So when they ask you about like, you know, what are you interested in doing 4 years from now, if you are accepted to our program, you have like an idea of what your career path could look like. Because unlike a lot of people in public perception's opinion about veterinary medicine, there's actually so much to the field that you could do with the same degree. So everyone can get their DVM, their Doctor of Vet Med degree, but everyone could also go into like different avenues with that same degree. So you can do public health, you can do nonprofit work, you can do academia, you could do zoo work, wildlife, you can do private sector with small animal, you could do large animal, mixed animal, you could do shelter work, you could do military. There's so much you could do. And so knowing kind of ideas of your interest is good, because they could definitely ask you about that. That's definitely a fair question that has been asked about. MMIs, this is a type of interview that a lot of schools tend to use nowadays. Multiple mini interviews is basically the acronym. So can you write in the chat if you've heard of this or if this is brand new? I certainly did not know about it before applying to vet school, so that's totally fair. Just trying to get like an idea. Yeah, cool. Okay. So what this is you'll get like a bunch of mini panels. So instead of one person interviewing you for like 20 minutes, it'll be multiple mini interviews. So you might be in like a session with, say it's a virtual interview, but it's MMI style. You might be in a session with somebody or two people on a panel for like 5 minutes, and then you rotate to a different group, and now there's like two new panelists, and they're going to ask you a question, and you have like 5 minutes with them total, and say 4 minutes of that is you answering and 1 minute of that is you asking them questions. And then you rotate again, and now you have another section where now you're with another group of people, like two people interviewing you, 5 minutes on the clock to answer their question, and then they're all gonna like grade you per se, and then at the end, like all the people's top favorite candidates kind of like will move forward. So this is something that, you know, sometimes intimidates people, and it makes sense why, but there's plenty of resources to prepare ahead of time. And these questions tend to be more scenario based. So they tend to be more like, tell me about a time when you ... So what I always tell people is try to prepare stories on deck that you just have in your back pocket to pull out of and to talk about when they say, tell me about a time when you showed a leadership, leadership qualities, or tell me about a time when you faced an ethical dilemma, or tell me about a time when you had a conflict with someone. So having stories in your back pocket will make the panicking on this like scene a lot easier, because it makes it just helpful to prepare a few like core stories that you can tell that can fit into a few different scenarios, like some positive things, some things that like you know, were more like ethical based, questionable, like conflict kind of stories. And then basically the most important part is that every story you just kind of end with like what you learned from it or how you grew from it, or like trend in like a positive way. So like maybe the conflict story, maybe you had a conflict with someone and the whole story is a little bit like tension, you know, like you're describing what happened, and you're describing like you're answering their question, and you're painting a picture of like, you know, the scenario, but then you always want to end on like, but what I learned from this was, or how I would handle this in the future would be, or like if I had to face this again, I would, and something positive. So that way you don't end on like a negative note, even if the question is more of like a negative thing. So the MMIs are very scenario based most commonly, and there's usually a little bit of time at the end for you to ask panelist questions. So we'll also touch on that about like, what do you do if like they say, and what questions do you have for me? Because that's really important to prepare questions ahead of time. And staying calm under pressure, the best way to do that is really just preparing ahead of time for just knowing what you'll do if you're not sure of how to answer a question, because that's the scariest part, is like if they ask you something you don't know. So practicing an answer for if you don't know the answer to a question, which is totally fine. There's plenty of interviews that they're purposely going to ask you something that they don't expect you to know. They just want to see how you can handle it. So being able to not just like shut down with pressure, but just think on your feet, stay calm, and just say something like, you know, I haven't heard about that. That's a really interesting thing. And this reminds me of this, or like, you know, saying something like, well, I'm not sure about X, but it kind of reminds me of Y, which then leads me to like Z. So kind of making connections like XYZ, I don't really know what this is, but it kind of reminds me of this. So my best guess would be this, and I'm interested to learn more about it, kind of a thing. Instead of just, you know, panicking and saying, I'm really not sure, and getting really flustered and then making something up. It's better to just like take a second, admit that you're not really sure what that is, but make your best guess, and then kind of move forward saying that you're like interested in learning more and looking into it more and everything. That's more than okay. They'll like that you can think on your feet, because vets do that every day. They're asked questions a lot of times. We're faced with cases that they necessarily don't know the answer to. So just being able to reason your way through it the best you can, and remain calm, and then just know how to look it up later is really all that you really need to do with that. So panel interviews, like we're saying, with the MMIs, it's often panel form. It's multiple interviewers asking you questions. So being able to talk to a few different people at the same time is key. If it's in person, maintaining eye contact is important. If it's on like a Zoom kind of platform, virtual, just trying to maintain eye contact at one single point. So if that's like the camera, or maybe that's like just straight ahead, just trying not to like look around too much where then they're distracted by your eye movement instead of feeling like they're maintaining a normal conversation with you, where people tend to, in America, look each other in the eyes. Being concise with your answers. So that just comes with time. The more flustered you feel, the more people tend to ramble. So with time, with practice, you'll be more composed. You'll be able to be more concise with your answers. It's not possible to practice every single question that you'll possibly be asked because there's just an endless bank of questions they could ask. But just getting a general idea of the flow of your questions and answers is really helpful. Confidence. So even if it's faked, just fake the confidence if you need to, but portraying a sense of confidence is really important. That will also come with time, but whatever makes you feel more confident, do it before the interview because it's helpful to portray an air of confidence when you're talking to them. However, they do know that everyone's nervous. They totally understand that most people have a lot of anxiety surrounding interviews and they are understanding about that. But if somebody comes forward and gives a really great lasting impression in an interview because they're have this really great air of confidence and they know their stuff and they have great answers, versus someone that's really flustered, not sure of themselves and acts like skittish and not really looking at the camera, feeling like that, they're just not going to do as well because the other interviewer is going to leave a better impression. So confidence, even if it's faked, is important. Okay, tailoring your responses is also really important. So every school, like I said in the very beginning, every school wants to feel special. They don't want to feel like they're just one of 100 schools that you're applying to. So you don't want to have answers or questions that just seem very vague and general. And so at the end of the interview, when they say like, what questions do you have for us? It's really important to prepare questions ahead of time for them. You want to have questions. It's not a good sign to them if you don't have any questions. So prepare questions for them. Prepare questions that you can't just easily Google. So have questions that are tailored to their school. So having questions like, if the interviewer themselves introduce themselves as like a former student of the school and not just like say a faculty member that didn't go there, then you could ask them questions about the school from their perspective as like a former student. But if they're just there as faculty, maybe they never went to school there themselves, maybe they're part of like the student services team and they're not even a teacher, so they're not a veterinarian, your questions might be a little bit different. So having a few different types of questions is really important too. But regardless, some things like, can you talk a little bit about the culture at the school? That's something that you can't Google. Like you can't Google and find out really about like what it feels like to be at that school, what the culture is like. If it's a collaborative culture, if it's competitive, like it's hard. You can't find that out on Google. So it's something that like is a question that they would need to speak to because they're there. And it doesn't matter if they're a vet or just like another faculty member to answer that question. Because if they are at that school, then they know what it feels like. They get a sense of the student camaraderie and stuff like that. In terms of like, if they are a vet and they went there, or if they're a vet that teaches there, you can ask something like, how do you feel like your school, XYZ, and say their school, prepares students, fourth-year students, to succeed in passing the NAVLE. So like what kind of resources do the school provide? The NAVLE, for anyone that doesn't know, is the board examination that you take during your 4th year. It's like one of the 2 things you need to become a vet. So you need to graduate your accredited school and you need to pass your NAVLE. So the NAVLE is something that you could also ask about. It's harder to find information just from like a quick Google. So they wouldn't blame you if you don't know that answer, because you couldn't just like easily look up to see if like they feel like the school like adequately prepares them. Of course, they're probably going to say that the school does, but you can ask for examples of that and kind of talk about that. What's really important though is do your research. So really research the school, know about different clubs, about different ongoing research projects, know about ongoing organizations that you might be interested in, and then ask them questions that you can't just find easily on their website. And I'm saying that like asking about questions that you can't just like easily Google or find on their website, because then they'll just think that you didn't put any effort into your questions. So if you ask a question like, do first year students take anatomy or something? Like you could probably easily find that on their website under like course load for vet students, and so it's probably not something that you need to spend time asking them, but something that you might want to spend time asking them are like other questions that you cannot so easily just look up. You could ask them about like what a typical day would look like for a first year student at XYZ school, instead of like, do first year students take anatomy, because that will be listed in a course outline somewhere. But if you want to know more about like, how many hours are like in person versus like, are they now doing some virtual classes, or are all the labs like, are the majority of your first year, is it mostly labs? Or for the island schools, like asking kind of about some of those match programs where during the first 2 years you're like at an island school, but then after that you get put at a US school. So asking questions that you can't just easily find is important, because it shows that you did your research and you really care about their school. Okay. Mock interviews help you practice all this. And so I strongly recommend coming up with your list of questions ahead of time. I think 10's a good number just to have, because maybe 3 will be inadvertently answered by them in just their introductions, like in their first few minutes of them just giving info about the school. They might already cover like 3 of those questions. And then say like you have 5 or 7 more left in your bank. And then throughout the different stations, maybe you ask 1 or 2 in each, like you'll be at that number by the end. So having a good number prepped is good. And then I would just practice saying them in your mock interviews, because it really just helps make everything more fluid. Okay. Questions that vet schools ask. So we already mentioned that they could ask, why do you want to pursue vet med? That's definitely a question they've asked before. I've also heard a lot, like, this is very commonly asked, why are you interested in applying to our vet school specifically? And they'll fill in the blank. So why are you interested in LMU? Why are you interested in Arizona? Or what makes you want to go to Massey? It's really important to do your research so that you know why, because you don't want to just say common things that apply to every school. You want to be able to customize it to them so that they know that you actually want to go there. You're not just applying to them and 100 other schools just to throw your, get your best chances, basically. Even if that's the case, you just don't want them to feel that way. So you want them to feel special and tell them every reason why you are interested in applying to their school specifically. And the best way to do that is just knowing the school. So doing your research ahead of time, and maybe you've visited school and can share personal tips about like what you loved about being there. Or maybe you had a vet mentor go there and she's told you a lot about the school that inspired you. And there's just different ways that you could approach it. But even if you've never been there, just do your research online and figure out like a specific research project that you would like absolutely love to get involved in, that you feel really interested in and passionate about. That could be one of the couple of reasons. And so that question is definitely asked a lot. So I would prepare for that question. And then they tend to ask the like, how do you handle stress, or how do you channel your stress, because they want to know that you have outlets, because vet school is stressful, and having outlets helps people succeed. So they usually ask one question about like, tell me about some non-veterinary related or non-animal related things, because most of the time pre-vet students and vet students, their whole world is animal or vet related, and they don't really do a lot outside of that because that takes up the majority of the day. But they want to know that you do something that you could channel your stress that is a break from the vet world. So having some idea of like a hobby, or maybe you do a sport, something is good to prepare to say. And then they tell me about a time when you questions, very common in the ethical, like in the MMI scenarios, especially a lot of ethical kind of based questions. It might not even have to do with vet med. They might say like, tell me about a time when you faced a confrontation in high school. They might say something like that just because they want to see a time when you like, just nothing to do with vet med. A lot of times they want to like separate it to just see who you are as a person outside of vet med. And just basically getting a sense of like how you handle conflict. And they just want to know, like, even if there is conflict, which like there will be times of conflict in life, they want to know that you can handle it still in like a respectful, non-judgmental manner. You could still communicate effectively and then learn something from it at the end, like we talked about full circle with the stories. And then another common thing that they'll say is they'll give you a scenario and say, what would you do? So they'll say like, you work at a vet practice and you are a technician or a veterinary assistant and you see something unethical happen. They'll give a scenario and they'll say, tell me what you would do. And so you can't possibly prepare for every scenario that they could come up with, but just having a general idea of like how to talk through the scenario, and then supporting your reasons of why you said those things, like why you said what you'll do in the scenario, and then coming full circle about like your positive takeaways. And then like we talked about the handling difficult questions, it's okay if you don't know the answer. There's some schools in particular that are known for like throwing off people and just kind of like giving a question that you don't know the answer to, like something technical or specific. And it's okay to not know. You don't need to know everything, but you need to know how to like handle it. So if they ask you a question about something that you don't know the answer to, you can think about it for a second. And if when you're thinking through your just previous knowledge of everything and you really don't know what it is, just say something calmly like, that's a really interesting question. It sounds interesting. I don't think I've heard of it before, but it sounds like this, or it reminds me of this, which to me, then I would interpret it like this. And, basically just that's my best interpretation, but I'm interested in learning more or hearing more or looking more into this, or something like that. And just staying calm. It's okay to not know, but if it's about you and your experiences, you should know. If it's about something technical or like a new discovery or something that you haven't heard of, it's okay, but you just need to keep your composure and know how to move on. So yeah, the MMI format is very common nowadays. A lot of schools are starting to use it as a screening tool as well. So before you even get a live interview, they'll do an MMI style format with like a virtual assistant kind of. So you'll just be pre-recorded with questions on the screen. That's also part of this now. And being able to explain your thought process, staying balanced to consider multiple perspectives. That's really important for ethical scenarios. So if they tell you like, you're the vet and you really want to save this dog, but the person doesn't they want to euthanize because they can't afford it. It's really important to try to not be judgmental and to try to take a step back and just consider different perspectives and just describe at first, I would empathize with the person and try to let them know that I understand they're in a difficult situation, blah, blah, blah. And it's just important to show that you can consider multiple perspectives. And then speaking clearly and concisely for communication skills, that goes back to the point of, you know, even if you have fake confidence, just portraying an air of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence. And something that's helpful for that I advise students to do is just record yourself, like in your own home, record yourself answering some questions, because maybe you do things that you don't even realize that you're doing that you don't think comes across well. Like maybe you don't realize how much you're fidgeting, or maybe you don't realize how serious you look or how tense you look. And so it can give you a good just reflection of what you look like to them. And it can help you fine tune things before you actually have your real interview.
And I'm quickly going to hop in and just do a quick check-in with everyone. We'd love to hear from you. Just a reminder, we do have that Q&A coming up. So use that chat function as much as you like. No question is too big or too small. We want to hear absolutely every question you have. But I don't see any questions as of right now. So Caitlin, I think it's okay to just continue on. I know we have quite a bit of presentation left.
Okay. Yeah, everyone, please feel free to keep giving or start giving questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions, and it would make it even better because then I know exactly what you guys want to know. Embrace criticism. That's really important. A lot of schools will not give feedback, unfortunately, afterwards, because there's just too many applicants to do that for. But if you get the opportunity to have feedback from schools or from your peer tutor, mentor, anyone that's listening to your mock interview practice or to your questions, just use their feedback to improve. Don't take it personally, because it's the only way to get better, and they're probably only trying to help. And so that's only going to make you better to listen to their feedback. And sometimes you can't see things from your perspective, and it's helpful to have an outside perspective. So just regularly incorporate feedback to make progress and to keep improving and refining your answers. So this is insights from admissions committee members. Admissions committees look for candidates who demonstrate genuine passion and preparedness. They like to see that candidates are prepared. It's kind of an automatic red flag if you show up and either you don't look the part or you don't act the part. So if you show up and you're in sweats or there's a lot of things going on in your background, it's automatically going to be a red flag. They want to know that you prepared ahead of time, that you weren't late. They want to know that you dressed professionally, that you prepared your answers, your questions, more so than answers, but that you prepared just the way the style of your answers at least, and then questions for them. And then if it's a virtual interview, you definitely want to have everyone in your household know that this is going to go on. So, you could politely ask everyone to try to keep everything quiet for that 30 minutes or whatever, because it's really distracting and it will be a red flag if, people start shouting in the background of your interview. And you want to have either a virtual background like this or just a white wall. You don't want to have, your bedroom posters in the background. You want to have the desk that the computer is on very much like eye level, so that it looks kind of natural, like you're looking to them eye level and you're just having a normal conversation, not that you're looking like down at them or up at them. And that's all really just part of preparedness. So getting that ahead of time is going to help you succeed. Okay, I'm going to pause for the question. Why do you want to be a veterinarian? It's pretty similar to the main personal statement. Should your answer be similar, or do you not want to repeat yourself? I think that if your personal statement question was like truly what inspired you to become a veterinarian, and if it was like a good answer where you felt confident in writing it, you can totally use it again in interviews, because half the time the people interviewing you are not the same people anyway reading your application. A lot of times they have what's called like a closed book kind of approach to interviews, where the interviewee is not the same the interviewer is not the same person who actually assessed your writing. So sometimes it could be, but in that case, it will just remind them who you are. If it's a good story and it's honest, I wouldn't change it up. I would just repeat the same idea, but just like express it now. And now you have a chance to like describe it with emotion and passion. And in the case of like, if it's not even the same person reading it, then it's just like someone's hearing it for the first time, then it's definitely like a good opportunity to describe your story. So let me know if you have any more questions about that or if it didn't answer your question. Okay. Yeah, I would not worry about repeating yourself in an interview because a lot of times it's like a closed file, closed book interview where people don't even read the same things. It's not the same people reading than the same people and has the same people interviewing. And even if it is, like I said, you can just emphasize the things that make you unique that kind of help tie back to the application. And maybe you wrote a really great story and that will help remind them who you are. Or it will just like really solidify so they really remember you and your story. And I think that's better than like changing it up. So maybe they did read your personal statement and you said the reason you wanted to be a vet was because your mom was a vet and it inspired you. And then in your interview, now you're saying that you actually had a pet that inspired you. It would even be kind of weird that way. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about repeating yourself like that. I would just like bring, if anything, if you feel like, you know, you don't want to quote your whole story, you can like just bring a new approach to it. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would just worry about or focus more about being personable and passionate. Yeah, of course. Okay. Show genuine passion. I know you guys are here because you're passionate, because you know, that's really the only reason that people apply to vet school, because it's not for the money. There's definitely better opportunities out there to make more money faster than spending 4 years putting down you know, say $25,000 per year, and then doing that for 4 years just to come out to make like slightly above some of the other jobs that you can make with your bachelor's degree. So it's definitely about passion that you guys are here. That's what brings mostly everyone to this field. Nobody puts in 4 years of hard work just for any other reason, honestly. So let that passion show through. Demonstrating self-awareness, that's really important too. So if you are able to convey your strengths and weakness without being arrogant, it's really important, because you don't want to undersell yourself either. You don't want to be arrogant where you're just like talking about, you know, how amazing you are, but you want to show the amazing things you did. So you don't want to undersell yourself by like not even bringing up the fact that you're trilingual, because that's like what's going to set you apart and make you unique. And so there's a way to do it confidently without being arrogant. Yes. So just demonstrate self-awareness by showing confidence and talking through your achievements without, you know, just talking about how amazing you are. And there's definitely a way to do that. So definitely like you can run through your resume and know your stuff and know all the amazing things you did and talk about it. Because you don't want the interviewer to leave and not even know all these things that made you amazing because you felt like too embarrassed to bring it up, or you didn't want to like brag too much, because that's not like, there's a way to balance it. Definitely being able to show that you've learned from past experiences to improve. That's important. So it shows self-awareness, and that a good opportunity to do that is like, if you have a question that's something like, tell me about a time when you had a conflict, or tell me about a time when you learned from a mistake. That's a way that you can show something that you improved upon, because you want to, at the end, talk about like the lessons you learned, basically. And we talked about professionalism already, so I'll skip that part. Preparation builds confidence. We talked about that. Breathing and mindfulness techniques, that's really important too. It really can help you stay focused during the interview. You can do something called box breathing beforehand. You can look that up. It's just like a simple breathing technique that you can do from the few minutes before your interview. It helps just like reset yourself and get you in a better state of mind. But you should just figure out the things that make you feel confident and calm, and try to do those things leading up to the interview. Because really the best thing that you could do for yourself is feel or fake your confidence instead of, you know, accidentally making the interview not go in a way that you didn't want it to because you were so nervous that you blew it. And no one wants that because you're obviously you worked so hard to get there. So try as much as you can to be maintain a sense of calmness. They know that you're nervous. They know everyone's nervous. So they're already going to cut you a break. But just don't let it, block your train of thought because you can't even focus because you're so out of sorts, I guess. If you were offered an interview in person or Zoom, which would be better? Personally, I feel like in person is better. I think that most of the time they have a set thing that they will tell you, it's either virtual or they're going to tell you that it's in person. They don't often give the choice. I think if you can make it work in person and it's not a financial constraint, that's awesome because sometimes it's easier to establish rapport with someone in person. But if you are the type of person that is so nervous, you're going to do better over a computer screen and that you can just sell yourself a lot better over virtually as opposed to in person, you will be completely beside yourself, then that's something to consider too. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and it's often not even a choice. But ideally, if you could do either, do it in person. And if you had to choose based on your own personality and how you what you know about your own strengths, I guess I would go with that. Final interview day tips. Arrive early to allow time to settle in. Bring copies of your resume. Know your resume. Bring any other documents that they request. And if there's a panel of people, try to engage with each interviewer. After your interview, take some time to reflect on your performance. So think about how you can improve for next time, because a lot of the times there's going to be several interviews that you get if you apply to a lot of schools, and each interview is an opportunity to learn and improve for the next one. So even if your top school is first, you can still improve for the second one, even if the second one isn't as important to you. You still want to try to improve every time, and practice makes perfect. Truly, it's just kind of exposure. If you're really nervous with interviews, just the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. So each one you should get a little bit better. And if you have the opportunity to send your interviewers a thank you note, that can definitely leave a lasting impression. That's not always feasible. You don't always get their contact info. And it's not always possible, but if you have the opportunity, that's very nice. And each interview really is just a learning opportunity. So I'm going to stop here. And you guys, please continue to put questions in the chat.
And I'd love to hop in and just say, we would love to hear from you. The QR code on the screen just goes back to a really short survey. I promise you it's only 3 or 4 questions. We want to hear from you. We take all of this feedback back to our team. We look to improve it. We look to see what we could do better. And that just continues to allow us to really do this because we absolutely love doing these webinars. So it could even be a topic suggestion. Let's say you want to learn more. We are here for it. Or you think the shade of green on our webinar isn't great. We want to hear. No feedback is too big or too small. With that being said, I'd love to start this Q&A now. I know we've gone through a lot of questions. I'll give everyone a moment to just kind of get those questions in and kind of get the juices flowing. But Caitlin, I wanted to ask you, sort of looking back on your experiences in vet school so far, were there any moments that sort of felt surreal or kind of made you think did this just happen? Or wow, is this really my life?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's a lot of moments like that throughout vet school. Definitely after you do surgeries. So at NC State, you start doing surgeries in your second year. Not every school is the same, but by third year, most schools are doing surgeries. Definitely that's a time that feels surreal, that when I looked back, it was kind of crazy to remember that, a minute ago, I was just applying and anxiously waiting to hear back. And now I'm doing surgery. And that's definitely a surreal moment. And now I'm about to take my boards. I'm studying for the NAVLE. And it also feels surreal because 4 years ago, I would have killed to be able to have this opportunity to be in my 4th year, taking my boards. And right now I have to remind myself that when I'm studying, and it gets hard because there's so many hours that you put into it, but it's definitely, there's a lot of moments that are surreal.
That's beautiful. And I don't want to go down the route of tell us why you became a veterinarian, but is there any other insight? Oh, you know what? I was going to ask a question, but I do see a audience question, which I think we can clarity to. Do most of the schools know who you are prior to the interview, or is it just random based on school? This person is a business major and wondering if they will ask me questions about why I'm going into vet school. That's a really great question.
Yeah, I can definitely answer that because I was a business major. I was not also the traditional like bio major or anything. So I applied after doing a business bachelor's degree. So I totally get where you're coming from. And it felt so weird at the time. I felt like, you know, are these schools going to think that I'm like a fraud because I haven't had 10 years of experience like everyone else? And I realized with time, no, I think it helped me because it makes you unique and it gives you a perspective that a lot of other people will not have. And it sets you apart from a lot of people who are just getting a lot of the more typical science degrees, which is amazing and will help them in vet school because they will learn a lot that you will learn for the first time in school. However, you're not behind, and I think that if anything, it will help set you apart so that they remember you, and you're going to have some other communication skills that were honed in business school that other people wouldn't have had the opportunity to get in the traditional science routes. So most schools, no, I don't know if they'll know it ahead of time of the interview because it depends if the interview was the same person that looked at your file and saw like your major and your classes and your degree. But it really doesn't matter either way because you could talk about it either way. Because honestly, like even if they don't know about it, I really feel like it only helped me. And that was not something that I had the perspective of when I was applying. I was unsure if it would hurt me. And I really feel like having a different perspective is something that you can use to your advantage if you phrase it the right way. And if you talk about the different experiences you had and kind of like your pathway becomes more interesting then, like why then are you pivoting? And so using it to your advantage is the most important thing. If asked about a weakness, yeah, okay, awesome. I love this. So you're not great at public speaking, but that's all you can think of. Yeah, so group public speaking. So when you describe your weakness, make sure that when you're done with your answer and you address the question, you're coming full circle and talking about like ways that you're working on improving and like ways that you're trying to improve kind of. So then it becomes something that you're actively working on and not just like this labeled weakness that you have that's like part of you. So public speaking is definitely fine to say. It's a very, very, very common weakness that people have. Another one could be like clinical speed, which is totally reasonable because you're obviously not going to be speedy at a lot of clinical stuff before you had a lot of experience. So that's something that does not make you look bad because you obviously need experience to get faster at clinical things. And so you could say something like I'm still trying to improve some of my clinical technical skills. That's something that could be a weakness. Like maybe like for me right now, like maybe my weakness, if I'm doing job interviews, maybe I'm working on my like clinical speed for surgeries, not to like rush, but just so that you're improving so that I have less anesthesia time and like for the patient. And for you all, maybe that could be like your clinical speed could be more like your accuracy at blood draws or your ability to let's say like work on your fear-free like cat restraint because that's such a big movement right now, like fear-free everything. So maybe a weakness you have is that you are like trying to improve how to like properly restrain a cat while like doing it safely, but like, you know, like burritoing it with a towel. Like you can think of like a technical thing that you want to improve on because obviously it's not going to look bad to like not have not be better at it now when you all are like so early into your career. So something like that you could definitely say. MMI questions ever personalized to you in your resume? Sometimes, not typically. Most of the time they're general. They could be, but they're normally more scenario based or just general questions. But I've learned that interviewers can do whatever they want whenever they want, because it's, you're the one that wants to go to their school. So they can ask a lot of questions that, might like make us feel like, is that fair game? Like, I know Massey asks like, what other schools have you applied to? And that feels weird, but like they can ask whatever they want, I guess, because they're the school. And that might change with time, but right now, they really can. So I'm just saying they're normally more like general scenario questions for MMIs, but I just wouldn't discount anything at this point. Yes. So for y'all that are older and have been out of school, maybe applied once, are we at a disadvantage? No, definitely not. I think it is really hard to get in your first time applying because they want to know that you are committed enough to come back the following year and reapply. And a lot of times, even good applicants get denied the first year. It is like majority of my class are re-applicants because they really like seeing that people are A, dedicated enough to come back, and B, they really like seeing like what you improved of in the year that you were denied. So definitely you can use it to your advantage. You just talk about all the experiences that you gained in the meantime. And that's why, like, if someone's considering applying, like if they're like, I could apply this year, but I think I'll be better next year. I'm like, apply this year because like get that year kind of out of the way per se, because you just then your application's on file. So it's easier to fill out the next year. And then you have the whole year to like show all this growth. And then when they reevaluate you the next year, they see that you are dedicated enough. You came back twice, which genuinely like most vet students are reapplicants. And then they'll see that you basically like all this improvement, whether you retook some classes that you had a lower grade in and now you improved your grade, or you got like 1,000 more hours in this, it just helps. And you could like look back at your essay and be like, wow, like I thought it was great last year, but now I'm seeing like all these ways that it could be better. So definitely not a disadvantage. You can use it to your advantage, just showing how much you've grown in the year. Okay, any other questions?
So I think we'll give people a minute to get their questions in because we're actually almost at the hour.
Yeah.
Okay, let's answer this one more question. I think that's
Sure.
What if I graduated in 2018 in undergrad, then did master's and graduated in 2020? Will it look weird if I took 2020 to 2024 off from applying?
No, you just describe why. Like, just tell them what you were doing. Were you getting real life experience? Were you figuring out that this was definitely your passion and you actually like can't keep putting it aside because this is really what you want to do with your life? Like, if anything, you could show in your answer all the ways you grew and your maturity. And there's people in my class and in every class that are from all different ages. Like, I know vets who went to vet school at 40 years old with kids. Like, it doesn't matter. Just show like why it makes you better. Honestly, it's just what you have to do.
And I think for this question as well, the fact is there was a global pandemic happening. So I think they also tend to be very understanding about that.
For sure.
So we're right at the hour. I think this is a really great spot to wrap up tonight's webinar. Thank you so much for having us. Caitlin, thank you for your wonderful expertise. Great presentation. You're getting tons of compliments in the chat. And thank you to our wonderful audience. We love doing these. We want to hear from you. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything we can help or support you with, if you need some sort of document or some sort of anything that we can do, any sort of tools that we have in our skill set, we want to be able to share that with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.